Hello, Kings and Queens. Happy Sunday, everyone. My name is Pamela Bina. Welcome to African Business Club. Our goal is to normalize financial literacy, networking, and sharing of ideas and collaboration among Africans. Before we introduce the topic today, we have a few meeting guidelines. The moderator will mute everyone's mic while the expert and slash speaker gives the main presentation. Once the speaker is completed with his or her presentation, there will be time for questions and answers and a discussion session. At this time, feel free to unmute your mic to ask questions and share ideas and give feedback. You can also post questions into the chat section of Zoom, and your questions will be addressed. This session is being recorded and it will be shared with everyone via our social media platforms. I will now call on Dami to present the topic and speaker for this conference call.
Hello everyone, my name is Dami. Our financial literacy discussion topic for today is Black economic empowerment. Today we have an expert on the call to lead the conversation by the name of Mr. Akindele Akinyemi. Mr. Akindele Akinyemi is the president and CEO of the Global African Business Association, also known as GABA. That is located in Romulus, Michigan. The association originally started in Inkster, Michigan in 2014. He is a veteran in the field of education, ranging from teaching in the classroom to working on various educational policies to empower both students and the community at large. He is currently an academic advisor and career coach at Wayne County Community College District in Detroit, Michigan, and is the former chair of the Inkster Downtown Development Authority, Inkster Library Board, and Inkster Economic Development Corporation. Mr. Akindele has a deep passion for both education, economic development, and women empowerment through technology and the arts. His commitment to young adults is unmatched and is a serious change agent in the community he resides in. Thank you again to the experts who are joining us today. Mr. Akinyemi, please proceed.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and I greet you in peace and blessings to the African Business Club. Thank you for having me. It's indeed an honor to be on this conference call with you. Let me just begin before I talk a little bit about GABA. Let me just begin by saying that the African Business Club, in my personal viewpoint, is doing remarkable things to transform the community in which we live in through financial literacy and empowerment. It is very important that our community understand the importance of financial empowerment, financial literacy that can be converted into nation building. And what you all are doing as young people, young adults, millennials, are in terms of moving this entire process forward every 2 weeks is essential, and it's very important. And so we here at the Global African Business Association, on behalf of me as the president and CEO, salute you and honor you. And we will do everything in our capacity to support you on your mission, and so that we can all cross the bridge together as one. And thank you for the introduction. Again, my name is Akindele Akinyemi. I am the president and CEO of the Global African Business Association. We were founded in 2014. Myself and my co-pilot, as I call her, Rariona Make, we were had an idea, believe it or not, and give you a quick synopsis of how we came about. Had an idea when I still lived in Houston, Texas, back in around 2013, about building a chamber of commerce and a business association for Africans with an emphasis on community development. Oftentimes we have African business chamber of commerces or business associations. They unite the businesses, they have these dinners, they have a couple of programs, and they kind of keep the train moving. Well, my viewpoint was, how come we can't invest in the community in which we're trying to build, and then link the wealth with that particular community that may be struggling economically back home to a place in Lagos or Abuja or or Accra or Nairobi. And so she jumped on board. We got the train moving. We recruited 2 Gambians at that time and created what was known as the National African Business Association. But as time grew on, the group took off and our projects took off, and it became more global once we got our ambassadors involved, and now we're the Global African Business Association. We have hubs here right here in the great state of Michigan. We have a presence in Atlanta, Georgia, Houston, Texas, Omaha, Nebraska, New York City, New York, the DC, Maryland area. And then we have what we call GABA ambassadors in Abuja, Nigeria, Cameroon, and Mozambique. So we do have a global presence amongst us. We are a business support and business networking association. Our job is to give you the tools. We're tools to succeed. We're a one-stop shop. So if you're looking to do things with real estate, if you're looking to do things with education, if you're looking to do things with agriculture, if you're looking to do things with land use or even government policy, this is the spot you need to be at with us. What we've done in terms of GABA in the last 6 years, what we've done in the last 6 years with the Global African Business Association is really, really focus on economic and community development. With this topic we're talking about is called Black economic empowerment. And that's what we have done in the city of Inkster. Why did we pick Inkster? Inkster, Michigan is 10 miles west of Detroit, Michigan. It's only 6 square miles. It's 24,000 residents. The poverty rate is 36%. The unemployment rate there, it's hovering around 12 to 15%. It might be higher because of COVID-19 and people are out of work. You have a depleted tax base in the city of Inkster. And so we decided to say, hey, you know what? Inkster is 10 miles west of Detroit, is next door to the major airport. Why don't we set up shop here? And what we did was, the old mayor had been to Africa several times, Nigeria and Ghana in particular. He understood our vision. And so he appointed us to the Inkster Economic Development Corporation, which covers the whole city in terms of economic development. He appointed us to the Inkster Downtown Development Authority. And I myself ran for political office in the city of Inkster, which is the library board. You have to run for that position, and I won that position to get on the library board to move that project forward. So there's a few things we did on these boards and commissions as GABA. One of the things we did was we started moving the train with a culture arts district. And with that culture arts district, we understood that if we can build a cultural arts component, if we could build a cultural arts component to attract new businesses and new people to the city of Inkster, that's what we did. So we ended up putting a couple of murals up. That's never happened in the city of Inkster. We ended up putting together a farmer's market at that particular point in time. And then, and most importantly, what we ended up doing was really getting the conversation going with city government about this culture arts component. And we're still working on that. Now, on the other end of that, what I was doing was, as the president of the library board, I was moving along this project for us, a $1.8 million capital improvement project to build a new library for the city of Inkster. So we managed to do that. The new library has been built. It hasn't opened yet because we're still getting over the COVID-19. There's some tweaks that has to be done before the library officially opens. But we managed to get that project off the ground. And then we're linking the new library with some of the mural designs and all these other things dealing with culture arts to attract new businesses and new people to the city of Inkster. Now, the reason I'm bringing all this up to you is because this was the Global African Business Association leading the way. your fellow Africans in the African American community, creating a fusion of community spirit to move this process forward. Now, the reason I bring that up is because oftentimes African Americans and Africans may have some differences in terms of how to work together and understand each other from a cultural perspective. Well, we were able to break those barriers down. And all we did was get involved in the community and build the trust. And that's what we've been doing for the last 6 years. In Romulus, Michigan, where we're actually based, we are working on an ambitious project to build a grocery store in the city of Romulus. Now, the grocery store, some people say, oh, is it an African market? Well, it's an African market, but we're not calling it an African market because we want to attract everybody to the market and understand the importance of linking the wealth between the continent of Africa and here in the state of Michigan. But that grocery store, the reason why the grocery store project is important in a place like Romulus is because Romulus, which is next door to Inkster, Romulus is 36 square miles and only 23,000 residents. The problem with, and that's where the airport is located. We have 2 Amazon facilities in Romulus. If you wanted to practice any type of agricultural business or technology, Romulus is the spot. And yes, it is a black city. The issue with Romulus, though, it doesn't have a grocery store. 36 square miles, no grocery store. I want you to think about that for a split second. You're a big city with no grocery store, no Target, no Walmart, no local stores like Save-A-Lot or Aldi's. None of that exists in the city of Romulus. So we have an opportunity to build a grocery store to provide a service to the community, to get buy-in from African Americans, white folks, and other folks to understand what the GABA plan is about. And that's what we're working on right now. Now, the grocery store is just part of the puzzle, though. The grocery store is really just providing the service needed for the community residents. On the back end of that, we are working on something a little more intense called an African supply chain. There's no real African supply chain in the United States. And so we're working on developing an African supply chain through an e-commerce platform where we'll be able to link the wealth between the state of Michigan and places like Nigeria, where we can do imports and exports, engage in the foreign trade zones, engage in AGOA, African Growth Opportunity Act, which everybody should know about the African Growth Opportunity Act. Whereas if you're bringing in resources from the continent into the U.S., whether it's textile or agriculture, those products, if they are tariff exempt, if that particular country is participating in AGOA. So, long story short, we're trying to tap in all these resources, and Michigan is an agricultural state, so we're trying to tap in all these resources to create this pipeline, the supply chain, and distribution hub right there in the city of Romulus. We've been working on that for quite some time now. The grocery store project, we're pretty much at the door. We're just now looking for a facility to launch. My logistics director have done a phenomenal job of really keeping the fire lit on this project. In terms of what we're doing in Inkster with community development, we have something called the STEAM and Heat Project. STEAM stands for science, transportation, education, agriculture, and technology. And HEAT stands for healthcare, education, arts, and technology as well. The STEAM and Heat Project is our community. It's like a community toolbox. We train people in terms of urban agriculture. We'll be able to utilize our new library for science and technology training. We've courted the community college. At the beginning, everybody heard me say, heard the young lady said, I work at Wayne County Community College. which we've able to bring in Wayne County Community College into the city of Inkster. And what we're doing is creating this synergy to attract international students from the continent of Africa to come into an Inkster, to come into a Romulus, and to be part of this synergy to link the wealth between the United States and Africa. GABA has been working on these initiatives for quite some time. Now, the reason why I'm sharing this with everybody is because it is high time for organizations like yours, organizations like mine, to really engage in the empowerment process. We need to be more engaged in terms of understanding who sits on our planning commissions, understanding who sit on our economic development corporations, understanding who is your mayor. Do you have a relationship with your mayor? Do you have a relationship with your city council? Do you have a relationship with your state lawmakers? The reason I'm sharing this with you is because it is very, very important to understand that these cities that look like us through this COVID-19 recession, and just an economic recession in general, a lot of our Black cities are in trouble. And a lot of our Black cities are going to need extra revenue and an extra strategy and an extra assist to remain sustainable. That's very, very key and important. And I have these conversations with our folks in Inkster all the time about what is your sustainability plan. I hear the part about getting rid of the deficit, but what's your sustainability plan? Unfortunately, most of them don't know. They haven't thought that far. So here we are, organizations like ours that have a link back home. Can you imagine? I mean, seriously, can you imagine some of our African-based businesses that could set up shop right here in the United States, African brands, hire African-American young men and women and train them to own their own franchises with an African brand? This is what we're educating people about. Take a look at some of the oil and gas companies in Africa. Well, none of them here exist, not even as a subsidiary. This is how we build communities, small communities, medium-sized communities. This is how we rebuild our Black communities here in the United States in the 21st century. They have to understand that they are part of a larger ecosystem. So when we're talking about Black economic empowerment, we're talking about linking the wealth between right here in the US with Black communities and back home with Black communities, understanding the importance of relationship building to create a pipeline of opportunities for young adults. This is very key because what has happened most of the time is, unfortunately, a lot of our lawmakers and our policymakers view Africa as a cultural phenomenon, as a security issue, as a social justice platform. Most of them don't look at it as an economic opportunity to bring those resources back into the community, to put people to work, to create extra revenue, to create a tax base, and make communities more sustainable without begging someone like Donald Trump or the White House for extra money. The extra money is out there. The extra money exists within the African diaspora. The African Union has declared the African diaspora, which is outside of the continent of Africa, as the sixth region. So we need to take advantage of that sixth region strategy economically to create sustainability within our communities. As an educator, and I'll share this with the group, as an educator, I have been saying for the last 10 years that if we are serious about changing urban education in our communities, we need to start courting our children on an F1 visa into our schools right here and teachers right here to help balance our schools out. And I get a lot of pushback. Well, what's wrong with our children here? I didn't say nothing about your children. What I said was, you need to be courting students, high school students on a F1 visa to your local black school district. Now, why is that? One, these children want to learn. We all know that. But the flip side of that is, because those children are not citizens yet, they still have to pay tuition. That's money going back into the school district, that particular black school district. They go, oh, we didn't think about it like that. I know. This is the reason why these types of innovations are happening. I mean, other white school districts are doing it with the Chinese students. They do it with other kinds of students. They recruit teachers that don't look like you and I from other places. I know Harmony Public Schools, which is a charter school network in Texas. They recruit teachers from Turkey. And the reason why they recruit teachers from Turkey on an H-1B visa is because the founder of those schools is Turkish. So someone like myself can set up a charter school or a charter school network. We get teachers from Nigeria, we get teachers from Ghana, we get teachers from Senegal, along with African-American teachers and students, and create that international academy, a real international academy of empowerment, training them about, and then you bring someone like the African Business Club in to train these students about financial literacy and financial empowerment, along with their studies. They're going to graduate with a vision that they have to transform the community in which they live in economically. This is what we're doing in the Global African Business Association. And this is what we've been doing for the last 6 years, period. And so I want us to understand that as this stuff with George, and I want to talk about this real quick, this stuff with George Floyd, this stuff with this young man who just got shot, was this in Atlanta? Now, you know, that was ridiculous. All they had to do was just pepper spray him or whatever. He could have still been alive. That was just absolutely ridiculous. Police brutality, all these things, people marching and stuff. I think it's okay to protest. I think at some point, sometimes it's okay to practice social justice. But if we learn to take our communities, control of our communities economically, see, when you control the economics of your community, you control the politics. Period, point blank. I've been involved in education over 20 years. I've been involved in politics over 15. When you control the economics of your community, you control the politics. You control who's going to be mayor. You control who's going to be on that city council. You even control who's going to be on your commissions when you control the situation economically. Black communities are controlled by Indians, and somebody here in the United States, Indians, they're controlled, here in Michigan, they're controlled by Arabs. We have the largest Middle Eastern population outside of the Middle East, right here. We have to be in a mindset of controlling our communities economically first. When we control our communities economically first, the rest of the dominoes will begin to fall in our favor. We control our communities economically first, then we can show direction. We can show the direction of where the police need to go. For real, because we're the taxpayers, and these businesses pay taxes. So we have a voice at the table, not just, and we need to get out of this mindset of just getting a seat at the table. We need to own and operate the table and dictate what's going to be on the menu. That's the truth, and that's power. When you talk of the real reason why a lot of these things are happening, police brutality, poor schools, lack of businesses, the lack of community development, no link between us here in the United States and abroad, it's because we have not sat down and engineered a 21st century plan to move this thing forward. Period, point blank. And that is very, very key, okay? That's very key for us in this decade as technology advances. You have all these things like Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and all this. It's very important to own that discussion and execute that plan. What we did in GABA, we didn't burn anything down. We didn't beg. We didn't plead. What we did in GABA was pretty much just took control of some things quietly in the community. And people thanked us for it because we were very consistent and persistent about our action plan. I'm the national, and I'll leave with this, and I'll end with this, and I know we got to go to questions and answers and discussion, but I'm just going to end with this. I'm also the national political director of the Nigerian American Public Affairs Committee. And so the reason why that's important is because once we get our businesses through a GABA train connected, then we can prepare those people who want to run for office through a NAPAC train to get elected in the office. But in order for those candidates to be elected, they need the backing of the business and the economic community to make these things work. Every ethnic group in the United States, that's what they do. That's what they do. We have to learn to do the same. The good thing about young people like yourselves in the African Business Club, the good thing about yourselves is that you have a fresh mind and a 21st century perspective on how to move this process forward. Period, point blank. And so you are very vital in the movement in this decade to showcase how communities need to invest in land, real estate, education, healthcare, agriculture, and linking those resources back home and opening the door for those brothers and sisters back home who want to invest here. Now we have an ecosystem and a pipeline where nobody can break that pipeline because we control the economics in our community. We control the politics in our community, and we control the socialization in our community through cultural arts. And those three things are vital for us to take over communities that we see fit. I'm going to stop right here, and I can answer any questions or anything. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Akindele. That was a very powerful presentation and a powerful message to us. Really want to appreciate it. Just a quick questions that we have. Although we are all Blacks, but some people still think we are separate. For example, how do Africans and African Americans foster more collaboration between each other?
Well, I get that question a lot. Even folks in GABA ask that question. And, the Global African Business Association, we have African Americans, Africans, Caribbean people, white folks. We're all here. And in terms of collaboration and really building that personal relation with each other, you need to find common ground. The common ground can be found in religion, whether you're a Christian or Muslim. Muslims pretty much, I ain't gonna say they pray the same, but most of them have the same tenets in terms of Islam. It may be the same tenets of Christianity. Music have always brought people together. Understanding each other's culture, understanding each other's food. I mean, these are some basics. It's nothing like rocket science. These are some key basics that we have always practiced in this country. I think the problem lies is this. I think most of the time when we have young people that's getting ready to come to school here, and I'm an academic advisor, and young people talk to me all the time about this. Well, we've been told that, when you get to America, find somebody who's white to hang out with, because African Americans are lazy, because that's what they see on TV. That's what they see in social media. Over here, sometimes it's very difficult for African Americans to connect with Africans because they feel that Africans are more superior or uppity or whatever compared to African Americans. And so the way I break those barriers down is what I do best: education, and showing them that there's really more commonalities with each other than differences. One group being a victim of slavery, the others being a victim of colonization. We were brainwashed to worship white folks. Colonization did the same exact thing. We're being beat down by the same enemy. So why are we arguing about this stuff? And so when it comes to educating each other about why we need to come together in the 21st century, about why, because here's the deal. Here's the deal. China is occupying Africa. Japan, the UK, the French, they all occupy Africa. Ask yourself why your African American brother and sister ain't occupying Africa. That's their birthright. At the same token, our Black communities are being depleted in terms of a tax base and the lack of businesses. How come we're not reaching out to our brothers and sisters on the continent to come here and help us rebuild our communities here, so that we can have a win-win situation? That's where we're going. And that's what we have to do in this decade, starting right now.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Akindele. So if anybody on the call, if you guys have any questions for the speaker, please feel free to unmute yourself to ask the speaker your questions. And please just feel free to ask a question if you guys have a question for the speaker. Okay. All right. There's a couple of questions on the chat box. I'll read them for you. This is from L Mac. He mentioned, do you think the amount of money recently printed in the trillions will put the economy in a high inflationary environment going forward? Meaning we will need to earn way more, making it harder for us to keep a balanced lifestyle.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And speaking of this economy, if you pay close attention, if we all pay close attention to what's going on, we really this, and you know, I say this all the time. We simply don't have an answer for how to fix our economy right here in the United States. We don't. Richest country on earth, largest economy on earth, and we don't really have a 21st century way of doing things in terms of the economy. We're going to not only hit a deficit, and with this recession is not going to go away. Because, and the reason I say this recession is not going to go away, it's not going to go away long term, because it's going to have a trickle effect. A lot of these companies, a lot of these businesses are closing. A lot of cities, food and mine is in a deficit. You don't find any new businesses opening up. Taxes are very high in communities of color. Who is going to make up for that shortfall? And this is how come business education is very important, because we simply have to do things differently. My city is Inkster, Michigan. We do not have a bank there. There's no bank in Inkster. How are you going to empower people financially in terms of Community Reinvestment Act or any other type of product? There's no bank there. There's no bank, no credit union. Can you imagine GT Bank from Nigeria coming into the city of Inkster, even as a subsidiary, setting up a credit union? These are the conversations, this kind of education we provide. So to answer your question in short form, yes, the answer is yes, that's definitely. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, my friend.
Okay, thank you for, there is Tai Duarte from California, from NAPAC.
Yes, sir.
And thank you for the work you're doing for our community. I do have a question, however. A lot of the initiatives that you mentioned are actually things that are needed. How do we connect those initiatives with African institutions like the African Development Bank and even the AGOA that was incorporated by Congress a few years back? How do we connect, all these initiatives with those institutions like the ADB and the AGOA?
Yeah, let me start with AGOA. You're right. AGOA, for those that don't know, is African Growth Opportunity Act. I mentioned it a little bit in my presentation. It was enacted by Congress in the year 2000 under Bill Clinton, and it's been renewed ever since. Now, again, with AGOA, it's not a free trade area, it's more as a partnership. So I gave an example. If you're trying to import textiles or certain agricultural dry goods or agricultural products from a country like Nigeria or Ghana here into the United States, if the United States and Nigeria or Ghana or Kenya have a partnership through AGOA, your products become tariff exempt. Okay, but AGOA is not permanent, so it has to be renewed every so often. And President Trump has no interest in AGOA, so this is why we have to vote in November, because he will get rid of it. And what Trump is trying to do is he's trying to create what is called a bilateral agreement between the U.S. and certain African nations. Now, that in my opinion, is trying to undermine what is called the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is the African Union has initiated to increase intertrade between African nations on the continent. The thing about AGOA with African American businesses and creating that link there, it's first and foremost, we have to educate African American businesses why AGOA is impactful for their business if they're trying to get into an African market. That's the first thing we have to do. The second thing you mentioned about the African Development Bank. Now, the African Development Bank, at least my interactions with them in the past, they really focus on projects within the continent of Africa. So so how do we play ball here a little bit? Let's say, for instance, you have an African American business owner who is into agricultural products. Whether that's a supply chain, whether that's a grocery store, whether that's whatever. And that person has a business here, but that person decided to set up a business in Nigeria. That person decides to set up a food processing plant in Ghana. Well, as an American business owner and setting up shop on the continent, now they have access to entities like the African Development Bank. The African Development Bank can help finance those projects, whether it's food processing or just agricultural business or technology or whatnot. An African American business being funded by the African Development Bank, right, on the continent, exporting his or her products back home to the U.S. by way of AGOA. And if that person, he or she, decides to do inter-trade with another business or another entity on the continent, they can even participate in the African Continental Free Trade Area. So we play a big role in this. One of the key reasons why that GABA is in Romulus, Michigan, is because Romulus, which most people don't know, is set up for logistics. This whole city is set up for logistics, distribution, airport, all of it, trucking, whole nine, is set up for logistics. And we thought that was very important to position ourselves as an organization to do business and be part of an AGOA and an African Continental Free Trade Area. But that's how you link all that together, and African Americans can play a role in that and bringing those resources together to create a tax base both here and back home. Ms. Doherty, you're on mute, my friend.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is GABA a for-profit or non-profit?
We're a nonprofit organization, sir.
So you're non-profit. Okay. Yeah, I think it makes sense what you guys are trying to do. I think there are quite a few of us that are affluent that maybe help kind of with those goals. I think the key will be how you structure a lot of things you're talking about. And that's why I brought up a lot of those organizations to help with structure.
Absolutely.
ADB necessarily don't really have to put money, although it'll help, but that will help us overcome the issue of trust.
Correct.
You know,
that's
so
correct.
I think it makes sense to, if you guys are not already taking a look at that, to take a look at it. You know, that would be my that would be my advice at this point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but
yes,
thank you for what you do.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you. Can I follow with that in terms of like this is Dimeji Ariwale. Can I just ask a quick question from the presenter? Can I go ahead?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. One of the major challenges that we have in terms of like African American and Africans in terms of investing with each other and trying to grow their community financially and otherwise is about like what the gentleman that just asked the last question mentioned, which is trust. You know, like many Africans from their background, they are very, very big on trust. You know, they can't trust anybody giving them money or investing in something that they feel like, you know, they're not directly going to benefit or maybe it's going to benefit others. They're all selfish and, you know, very selfish about themselves because we all came here predominantly for greener pastures. But my question goes as, how do you teach trust, respect, and love? Because those are the key three factors that actually can, you know, if you'll be able to teach that, people will be able to trust each other. Because for me, you know, one thing I've found very difficult within my community as a Nigerian is that I've never seen any Nigerian community that comes together in terms of building a community themselves in America. I've never seen that. In terms of saying that, for example, buying houses, dominating a certain area, buying a certain area, buying houses, building community, building all kind of infrastructure that can enhance the development of their children and themselves as well. So, and this is the factor is based on trust. Many people don't trust each other. They don't trust each other, investing in each other or building community together. You know. So how do you teach trust? That's my main question. How do you teach trust, respect, and love? So those are the three key things that if we're able to lay our hands on those things, maybe we'll be able to move our community forward. Thank you.
I'll tell you what I do in the Global African Business Association. I built the trust and the love and even the commitment. I check on every member, every core member of my network every week. And if they're on this line, they'll tell you he checks on us. And I check on them for a number of reasons. Number one, I want to know what's going on with you on a personal level. You may be going through some serious trauma. You may have had a loss in your life. You may have lost your job. You may have lost your mother or your father. I need to know that as a president and CEO. And I need to help you understand that you can lean on my shoulder to cry or cuss or anything. I want to know what's going on with you professionally. And if you're struggling professionally, what can I do to assist? Okay. I think one of the things we have to understand is, in terms of building trust, is that sometimes you're not looking for a return on investment. You're not looking for something back from that individual. I don't look for anything back from my members. In fact, I encourage my members to talk to each other and build with each other and communicate with each other. They'll tell you that. don't always rely on me, rely on each other and build that. And once you communicate to one another, you could build that trust and that foundation that's always missing in most Black organizations. The other thing that I stress a lot is the importance of teamwork. We have to work as a unit and a team without hesitation if we're going to work on a common goal. This can't fall on the shoulders of 1 or 2 or 3 people. If there are 10 people on a team or 12 people on a team, we need to understand each other's strengths and weaknesses so that we can understand one another and move that platform forward. We do this all the time in GABA. Some things people come up to me in GABA and say, well, can you do A, B, C? And I tell them, go talk to so-and-so. Go talk to this person over here. Or sometimes in many cases, I may have my senior executive assistant chime in terms of trying to move the group process forward. See, the problem with a lot of organizations is we have this individualistic mentality that come into these organizations. We have our own agenda, not the agenda of the mission and the objectives of the organization, but our own personal agenda. And so we come in with our own personal agenda and this individualistic mentality and destroy the trust process. We don't do that in this circle. We can't reach out to a community. We can't build a business. We can't transform the community in which we live in. And we definitely can't link the wealth if we have an individualistic mentality. This is a group process in the Global African Business Association. I stress that a lot. My senior executive assistant stressed that a lot, and help people understand that we mean business. Even the African Business Club, even with the African Business Club, you know, we want to be able to mentor this club. We want to help this club. We want to showcase this club within our network to show people that young adults are doing the right things collectively, and they have the right mindset. Those are some of the soft skills and soft techniques that we work on in our circle, so that when there is a disagreement, you're not at each other's throats, but you know how to agree to disagree. When we have a complex issue, the team can put together their heads and solve that complex issue. So the trust factor comes in when you leave the individualism and you leave your personal agenda at the door and embrace the mission, objective, and goals of the organization in which you belong to for that common cause, so that we can all win at the end of the day.
Thank you for that answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Demetrius, for your question. Ms. Akindele, we have a few questions on the chat. I'm just going to read a few together in the interest of time.
Sure.
Chino asked a question. He mentioned, what are the current opportunities for people who may have financial assets but not the time to generate business for our community? And also, he asked, how the current projects that you mentioned were funded? And also, I can ask the question, what effect do you think an economic crash in the Americas will have on Africa? So it's kind of two questions by two different people.
Okay. Okay, so an economic crash, let me move backwards if I could. Economic crash on the Americas have on the effect of people. It can have a tremendous effect. I mean, we saw that in 2008 with the Great Depression, with the Great Recession. It can have a tremendous effect. It can have a domino effect globally. But we're living in a time where technology is advanced. It's just a matter of how to create sustainability and what things are going to use to create that sustainability. And I mean by things, I'm talking about what industries that you're going to use. Are you going to use a cybersecurity industry? Are you going to use a information technology industry, an agriculture industry, a cultural arts industry to create that level of sustainability? Those things are very, very important. And those are some basic discussions we should be having right now within the community in which we live in. We should be having those dialogues, not just with each other, but with your stakeholders. Because I'm guaranteeing you, your stakeholders have not thought about 10 years, 15 years down the road in their community when they're long gone. So that's one thing. In terms of how our projects are funded, well, the library project that I worked on was funded by taxpayers because we're a separate entity from city government. We can capture tax dollars through property taxes to help build that library. By the time I got on the library board in 2015, we had already saved $1.5 million. So we were ready to move forward with the project. They just didn't have the proper leadership to pull it off, and that's where I came in at to pull all that off. In terms of the mural projects, those were donations by different companies that we were able to court into the city of Inkster. Right now, we're looking at a crowdfunding project. To purchase some properties in the city of Inkster for our urban agricultural plan through our steam and heat projects, as well as some other things that we're going to be working on. And I'm sorry, the final question was what again? I'm sorry, real quick. There was the first question.
No, the first question was, what are the current opportunities for people who may have financial assets but not the time to generate business for our community, and how were some of the current projects that you mentioned, how were they funded?
Yeah. Okay. So I answered that second question. So in terms of the financial assets, that really depends on what your mission, and that depends on what your vision plan is. Because you have financial assets, you don't have the time to invest. It just depends. It really just depends. Is your vision plan in agriculture? Is your vision plan in cybersecurity or cloud computing? Is your vision plan in community development as it pertains to opening a network of grocery stores or anything? So it really just depends on your vision plan as it pertains to what you want to do with your asset, short term and long term.
I have a question. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, this is Ademola Okutoya here in California.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Akindele, I guess I have another name for you, Mr. Energy.
Thank you. Are you there? I guess not.
No, it's there. They're unmuting. Somebody muted.
Okay.
He needs to unmute himself.
Demola, you need to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I can hear you now. Yes, sir.
Oh, geez, I'm not a techie person, so you have to pardon me. But nevertheless, I know you mentioned something about guarantee trust, being out there in your community because you don't have any bank institution there. Is there any definitive steps being taken to make that happen?
On our end, yes. On the city's end and other people's end, I'm not sure. I know there's been discussion of creating a citywide citywide credit union, but that has not moved at all. What we are working on our end is creating a development of a fintech system, and fintech is financial technology, where once we set up our institution, our small based institutions, whether that's a grocery store or some other things, they'll be able to engage in some type of financial technology, whether that's dealing with Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies or things of that nature. I'm really trying to take our communities to a next step as it pertains to financial technology, because this is where we're at in the 21st century. We're in 2020, and this decade, everybody's talking about financial technology. So I know on our end in GABA, there's been some intense dialogue on how to implement a fintech system within the city of Inkster and in the city of Romulus. And we're successful in implementing this fintech system where people can move assets to digital cash or some type of cryptocurrency. Then that's something we can take on the road as well. So we have a few people in our network that's engaged with that right now, but we're really in the early stages of really pushing that forward, and I've kind of given the green light for that.
Okay. Yes, we have a few more questions on the chat. Somebody from NAPAC mentioned that how do we connect with these initiatives with institutions like the African Development Bank and the AGOA, and also somebody mentioned how do we become a member of GABA?
Well, I've already answered the first question. And the second question, how do you become a member of GABA, is just go to gabanetwork.com. You go to our website and you can read about us and review the membership application and go from there.
Okay. Just one more from Aya. He mentioned, how do you combat the fear that your business idea will be stolen by someone if you told someone about it?
You know, if you want to be politically correct, you can always copyright or trademark your stuff. Our ideas, I'll tell you a quick thing. I mean, some folks try to copy our stuff. We wish them well, because our stuff is not easy to copy. It's not easy to copy. And also I don't really put no fear into that at all, because I keep a tight ship. Most of the time, you can't even have access to the stuff that we're doing at the ground level unless you're a member. So even in our WhatsApp groups, I don't put a lot of information out there. I will talk to folks one-on-one, but I don't put too much information out there for a reason. But I don't never really have any fear. I mean, folks tried in the past to duplicate our efforts and start a chamber of commerce here in Michigan and all that good stuff, and we wish them well. We I don't wish no ill will on anybody, but I've been doing this for 30 years in terms of organizing, education, politics. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've been doing this a very, very long time. So I don't want to keep doing this for another 30 years. I want young people from the African Business Club to get engaged with GABA. I want GABA to get engaged with the African Business Club. I want young people to get engaged with NAPAC. I mentor and train them. And here, I'll hand you the baton. I'm not one of these people that's just stick around forever. I'll hand you the baton, and I'll go to Abuja and just relax. you know what I'm saying? So, but it's all about mentorship, and it's all about vision in our organization. Let me just leave you with this. The Global African Business Association, 80%, this is important, 80% of GABA members are women, 20% men. 80% women, 20% men. Out of that, you have 5% are baby boomers, 37% are Gen Xers like me, and around 54% are millennials. So GABA is really made up of Black women and millennials. My job is to mentor and educate them so I can hand the baton to them, and they can take this to the next step. That's it. And that's the platform we have. And we've been very, very successful in doing that for 6 years. and it continues to grow. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mr.
don't worry. Women are better anyway.
So this is just a message for the group. So we kind of at the end of the meeting. So we just have time for one more questions. So I'm not sure if anybody on the call has one final question before we wrap up the meeting.
Yes, Yomi Lawal from New Jersey. I want to thank you for the presentation. It's very, very informative. I know that we're short of time. I just want to ask you one more time to repeat the website. I want to visit it so that will enable me to know exactly what's going on and what to say the next time.
So the website is GABA Network, GABANetwork.com. GABA Network.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And if you're a member of GABA, and NAPAC, I thank you all for being on as well.
Again, thank you so much, Mr. Akindele. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for the knowledge, and thank you so much for sharing some of your experience and also sharing about your organization. We really appreciate you, and thank you for everybody for joining and your questions and your contributions to this meeting. With that said, I'm going to hand it over to Doyin to close out today's meeting.
Thanks, Wale. Once again, Mr. Akindele, thank you so much. That was a very great information. And I think at this moment, we all need just hearing, because we had a discussion last week, Tuesday, within the African Business Club. And some of the things we talk about is the things you mentioned, but actually seeing someone that have done it. And I know when me and you spoke, when I first met you, well, online, when I spoke to you, I told you how I'm very impressed with everything you've done. That's why I couldn't wait to get you there to speak to everyone. And thanks for your support. You've been very supportive with African Business Club. I've called you for so I just want to say thank you. We really appreciate it. And the last segment, we usually ask our speakers to give us a common sense finance tip or a common sense advice. In this case, whatever you have.
The best financial advice I can share with anyone is to invest in land. Here's why. You control the land, you control the economics, you control the politics, you control the direction of your community. Land. Not cars, not a house, because a house you still pay property taxes. Not a car, because a car depreciates. Land. You control land, you can build property. And you control the direction of your community the way you see fit. The Indians, real quick, 10 seconds. The Indians, and I'm talking about those from India, came over here. They did some invested in technology, the rest invested in properties and land to build hotels and motels. Okay? Land. Land. One final thing, and I know we got to close, but let me just, there's one, this is very important, I got to share with everybody. We support an initiative called BOMALink, BOMALINK.com. I need everyone in the African Business Club to set a profile up with BOMALink. And the reason for that is because BOMALink is the African version of LinkedIn. It was founded by a personal friend of mine, Shola Salako. Mr. Shola Salako founded BOMALink.com for us. He lives right here in Michigan. And GABA are major sponsors of BOMALink. Please set up a profile at BOMALINK.com. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a great presentation. Also, I just want to say thanks to everyone for joining us today. Thanks for your time. We will have this presentation uploaded on YouTube. Please follow us on YouTube and at African Business Club. Also follow us on Instagram, and we are just trying to do is move the Black economic empowerment, like Mr. Akindele have said. And we would love for you guys to join us in 2 weeks for our next topic. Lastly, I'd like to just remind everybody, let's remember we're all kings and queens. More than ever, this is time for us to work together. We have to love each other, respect each other, because as you can see, nobody else out there is respecting us. So we have to respect each other. So with that said, thank you so much, everyone. And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just
Thank you so much.
Very welcome.
yeah.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.